Welcome back to Adrian's Avenue. I am so excited and so glad that you're here today because on this channel we give you information to help you make better decisions for a better life, because I truly believe that your daily decisions determines your destiny. And thank you all for coming in today, and for the newcomers, the new viewers, thank you for coming in today. You'll be glad that you made it on this show for today's show. And on today's show we're going to talk about the number one thing experts say that if people could do it different with their finances, what would they do better? We're going to talk about that, so stay tuned. Let me just ask you, if you had a second chance to change your financial situation that you're in right now, if you go back a few years or to your early stage, what would you do? The experts say that most people say what they would do is start saving and investing earlier. It makes all the sense in the world. And I am going to prove to you why people should do this, why they should start as early as possible. And hopefully, if you have some nieces or nephews or children out there that are just starting their careers, you can tune them into this channel, especially this show, so they'll know how this can make an impact. They can actually retire earlier and retire with a lot more money than they ever imagined. As you start your journey of saving and investments, there's about 5 areas that you need to focus on. And 2 of them we're just going to get out of the way from the get-go. And number 1, an emergency fund. We've talked about that several times. I would say bare minimum have 6 months of expenses stashed away in an emergency fund. When you have that totally funded, or as you're getting it totally funded, a second thing that you want to think about, especially when you start your job, is your retirement. Do not sleep on that. Do not delay on your retirement, because the years go by and what you want is you want money compounding interest on your side. You want money making money over the years on your side. If it's 20 years, if it's 30 years, if it's 40 years, however, the longer you have it in there and the earlier you get it in there, the more that you will have at the end. And I will prove that to you at the course of this actual video. So those are the 2 things we want to kind of get out of the way from the start. We have to have an emergency fund fully funded, and then we have to have started putting money in our retirement account, either the 401k or IRA or the Roth 401k and the Roth IRA. We have to have some means of putting money in our retirement account, bar none. Those are the first 2 things that you start with before you go anywhere. And let me just let you know, if when you start putting money in your 401k, how it can grow for you and what kind of money you can have at the end of your career, or if you decide to retire early. Let me give you some specific examples how putting money early on in your retirement account can actually affect you in a positive way. Let's say you want to retire at age 60, and let's say you start at 22 putting money in this account. And if you put $100 a month in a retirement account that's producing 7% interest, at age 60 you will have $243,630. The good thing about this amount, it may not seem like a whole lot, but just think you're only putting $100 a month. Your total contribution for this time period is $46,800. The growth in it, which is just growing on your behalf, is $196,830. Let's jump that up. Let's step it up. You're 22 years old still. You still want to retire at 60, but you put $300 in the account a month. It will grow at 7% interest. It will grow to $678,148. 678,148 is what it will grow to. Okay, one last example. You're 22 years old. Let's say you just want to work until you're 65 and, retire at that age. And you want to put $300 in the account a month, still at 7% interest. You will have accumulated $982,838. That's almost $1 million by putting $300 in the account every month. Your total contribution over this amount of time is $158,800. And it will gain, the growth will be $828,000 $38. So that's the difference that you can make by starting early, even with these small amounts. You know, if you find that you can find $300 in your check as it's coming out, once you divide everything out where you want to focus your money, the bills you have to pay, the other things you want to do, if you can continue to put that amount in a retirement account, 401k, IRA, whatever it is, and it's making at least 7% interest, this is the kind of money that you're talking about. You can get $1 million just starting with $300. Now, as you get paid, as your raises come, you should put more and more and more in. And as you do that, you all, when you start putting $500 in there or $1,000 in there a month, you can grow up to the 3 million, 4 million, 5 million amount when you get ready to retire. And this is really what we're talking about. And sometimes we don't educate people early on and they don't know that the money can grow like that. Now that's at 7% interest. If you get into a really good account that produces more than 7% interest, it can actually be higher than that. If you decide to put more money in, it can actually be higher in those accounts. So don't sleep on this retirement account, because you can walk away from your job earlier, or you can walk away from your job with a lot more money than you thought you could ever have in life. We are still talking about saving and investing starting earlier in life, because that's the number one regret that people have if they could do it over. And with that being said, once we get these two accounts, the emergency fund account and your retirement account going, there are 3 other accounts. I'm going to try to keep it real simple that I'd like for you to consider. One is a major expense account. This account is for saving for this major expenses. It could be an expense such as a wedding, paying for a wedding. It could be an expense such as a down payment for a house. But these are major expenses that you know that they're coming in the future, that you want to have the money already saved so that you can capitalize on these major expenses. So keep that in mind for major expenses. It could be a car that you want to buy and maybe pay cash for it. But this is an account where you would sock money away so that when these expenses rolled around, you would have it available for you and you could go ahead and do the things that you wanted to do. The second account I want you to consider is the major opportunities account. And this is something where we're going to talk about investments. If you want to put more money toward investing, if you want to buy a rental property, if you want to one day open up a business, this is where you would start saving money to do those opportunities, major opportunities that you want to take advantage of, the things that you want to do for yourself, the things that you plan out for yourself or your family. These are the things that you put money in so that when that time comes, when that opportunity peaks up through the sand, you're ready to say, okay, we're ready to do it. Let's move forward with it. And you won't have to figure out, okay, how are we going to get the money to do this? How are we going to get the money to do that? The money will be already there because you've saved for it, you've planned for it, and you have that. The third account that I want you to consider is your lifestyle account, because there are some things that you're going to want to do with your family, such as go on trips or do some things like that may cost a little bit of money. If you go out of the country, or if you want to take a trip every summer, you want to do something, or if you want to take a trip for Christmas time, whatever it is you want to do, or if there's just things conventions you want to go to, or concerts you want to go to, just your lifestyle of living, you don't want to get in debt behind those things. So have an account for that. And that money, if you do something every 2 years, it can just stack up for 2 years until you get ready to do whatever it is. And if you want to extend your time in any place such as France or London, and you want to stay a month there, you'll have the money to do that because you've saved up. So these are 3 other accounts that I want you to at least consider, putting money into, so that you can have this money available and you won't have to go into debt for this. Since I am giving you this great information on how not to have that number one regret, I want you to hit that like button and that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on the latest information as it becomes available to you, and make a comment. I'd love to hear if you had this regret, if you know of this regret, or if you started earlier and you don't have to worry about these things that we're talking about. So we've talked about the other 3 accounts that I'd like for you to consider, but we need a balancing act. What percentage or how much do you put in these accounts? And once you have the retirement account being funded, once you have the emergency account fully funded, and you have some extra money left over that you can actually start saving in these other accounts, how do you determine how much to put in each account? And that will depend upon you. But we're going to give you an example. Let's say that you find yourself having an extra $1,000 in order to sock away in these accounts. How would you do it? I would say this is just an example and you can use it and then you can figure it out for yourself. But I would say in your major expense account, I would put maybe 50%. And this is something that will cover a down payment for a house or some type of education that you may want to continue. You know, you'll have time frames more than likely on this. And this is probably the least flexible account that you'll have. And this is probably too the highest priority account, because if you want to get into a house, you know, that's what you want to do. For your major opportunities account, you may want to drop like 30% in that. And that's for investments or maybe a business that you want to open. This priority is probably medium priority, and the time may be a little more flexible on this time frame. And so you have some adjustments to make here. Your lifestyle opportunity account, the one is for supporting your lifestyle and things you want to do, can be in a regular savings accounts, but on the trips and stuff that you want to take, this is probably one of the lowest priorities when it comes to your planning out your life and the things that you want to do. And probably one of the most flexible accounts out there is your lifestyle account. So maybe 20% in that lifestyle account. And so these three accounts will help you when you have that extra money or that certain amount of money that you know you have every month, every check. And then if this doesn't work for you, just move them around. What's the most important? Whatever the most important, that's the one that you want to put the most money in. And then the next, what's the one with the highest priority? Highest priority, that's where you want to put the most money in, because some of these, you all, once you get the money in that, it's over with. Once you get the down payment for the house, you no longer have to save for a house down payment. Once you buy that car, you no longer have to save for that. If you want to go back to school and get, you know, a master's degree or doctor's degree, once you save that money and know how much it's going to cost, then you no longer have to put money in those accounts. You know, the trip account, the things that may be going on a recurring basis that maybe is not as important as the other accounts, those you may continue funding, or you may get some other idea or some other goal that you want to have in mind to replace some of these. But think of priorities, think of time frame, how long it's going to take you to get there, and you know, just really what's important to you and what you want to act on as soon as possible. And then start putting the percentages of your money that you have available to put into these accounts. 50%, 30%, 20%, just like that. To help even more with getting these percentages as far as where to place the money in these different accounts, get them as close as possible so that you can meet your goals and do the things that you want to do in life, there are a few questions that you want to assess and evaluate to ask yourself so that you can get them right. And the first question that you want to ask yourself is, when will you need the money? The second question is, are there deadlines involved with this? What are the consequences of delay? Which goals have the highest return on investment and which support other goals? You want to make sure that you're putting your money in the right places. Of course, it's your money and you can move it around if you want to. But I like to, once I earmark my money for different accounts, I want to use it for that account that I earmarked it for. I don't want to move money around. Now, if I need to adjust the percentages that I'm putting in certain accounts, I can do that. But once it's there, I like for it to stay there and for me to use it for that purpose. Okay, so keep these things in mind also. I have one other thing to talk to you about before we end this video. Okay, the last three things I want you to think about for these accounts is, number one, keep them separate. Do not commingle funds. Don't put them in your emergency fund. Don't put them anywhere else. Name those three accounts, keep them in three different funds, because you know what amount that you have for each of the goals that you have there. So make sure you just don't commingle. Number two, make them automatic. Make them come out of your check without you writing a check or going to a bank and having to deposit that, or going online and having moved money from this place to the other, because sometimes either you won't do it or it's a lot of trouble. But if you make it automatic, it comes out of your check, goes straight into those accounts. You don't have to worry about it because it's always going to be there in the right account. And number 3, last but not least, make sure you're reviewing to make certain that this is where you want the money to go, because if you want to change that percentage, you can shift those percentages. So review and see what's going on. If something were to happen, it's like, okay, in the next 2 years, we're not going to be going to that place. We're going to be going somewhere else, or we're going to stay stateside. You can adjust your money and start putting money somewhere else. But make sure you're making those adjustments and looking at how the money is building up and how the funds are building up. Okay. So with that, hopefully this has been helpful to you not making that number 1 mistake of not investing early enough and not saving early enough, so that you have to either work longer or not have enough money when you do finally retire. We want to cover all of that. We don't want you to have that number 1 regret that most people have. If I could do it over, this is what I would change. And we know this savings and investing has a lot to do with getting your debt down. It has a lot to do with budgeting correctly. I didn't say my B word, but I'm saying it at the end of the video. Make sure I get it in. But we didn't talk about that today. But it all works together, and it all is in steps. So don't leave out any of the steps. But these are some important things, because this is the number 1 regret, you all, for people that have lived their life. They get to a certain point and it's like, boy, if I could have done it differently, I would do this all over again. And this is what I would do different. Okay, with that, I will see you. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.